Okay, can you guys hear me? I'm into a position if you can hear me, if you can. This wall is all under the city, okay? So, oh, here comes some more of our guys here. Okay, come on in here, guys. Okay. This wall is mentioned in 2 Kings when the Assyrians were coming down from the north, invading the 10 tribes to the north. There were 2 tribes to the south that were at civil war with 10 tribes to the north after Solomon dies, and it stayed that way until the Assyrians came in. The Assyrians was a judgment from God. The Assyrians were bad news. Whole towns and cities would commit suicide rather than fall into the hands of the Assyrians because of the things that they would do to you and your kids. It's just unmentionable stuff. They're coming. They've already wiped out and deported the 10 tribes to the north, barely never to have been heard from again. There are pockets of them still, and a lot of the refugees came down south here into Judea and the area of Benjamin. So what you have is the Assyrians are coming. God tells Hezekiah via Isaiah in so many words, it's going to be okay. Trust me on this. Hezekiah says, I will. And then he does 2 things. He builds this wall and he digs Hezekiah's tunnel. What you're looking at here and what you guys walked through in Hezekiah's tunnel was plan B. Now, I'm going to deal with the spiritual lesson here before I get into the facts of what happened here. The fact is that God, when he promises us that he'll take care of us, when he promises us that he's going to provide for us, when he promises us that his grace is coming, you can take it to the bank. If you're anything like me, I tend to put contingencies in place just in case God doesn't do what I want him to do. That's exactly what this is. That's what Hezekiah's tunnel is. It was an amazing engineering feat, as was this wall. But it was a total waste of time because God took care of the problem. So here's what happened. The Assyrians are coming. Jerusalem is getting ready for a siege. People come inside. They store up all the food they can. Hezekiah takes 6 months and builds that tunnel miraculously in 6 months to get the water source inside because the siege is coming. The Assyrians are coming and you don't want to fall into their hands. They are really, really bad guys. And then he calls upon something that we would call eminent domain. He just tears down people's houses, other buildings, and he, out of the rubble of the houses, which is what this is made of, he builds this wall. This wall was an extended wall, and you can see that map over there, where the section of the wall that's in dark right there. That's what he builds in order to protect the city. It's quite large. And you can see over here, the dates in here, Jerusalem First Temple period, and you're looking at a lot of things around here, but look at the marker along the wall. That's the estimated height of this wall. So this thing was huge. And again, it was vast. It encircled all of that part of the city in order to fend off, or at least hold off, the Assyrians when they got here. So they build the wall, and Isaiah's with Hezekiah, and the Assyrians come, and then they lay siege to the city, and they surround it. Along comes this guy named Rabshakeh, who is sort of their general, and Rabshakeh is the spokesman for Sennacherib, who is the king of the Assyrians. And the king of the Assyrians has put it on Rabshakeh, just plunder and destroy and take over this whole area, conquer it for me. So I'm going to read to you something that's a little lengthy, okay? But this is what Rabshakeh said, and it's absolutely blasphemous. It's amazing. Rabshakeh wants to speak to the people. This is the outside of the wall this way. This is the inside of the wall this way. Got it? Outside, inside. Rabshakeh is outside the wall. Was he here? Was he someplace else? We don't know. He was probably at the north end of the city because that's the easiest place to get into the city if you're going to attack it. So it probably wasn't here. But Eliakim, Shebna, and Joah said to Rabshakeh, please speak to your servants in Aramaic, for we understand it. We do not speak the language of Judah within the hearing of the people on the wall. In other words, talk in Aramaic. These guys don't know Aramaic. Not well. The Assyrians speak Aramaic. They're begging Rabshakeh to speak in their native language, not in Hebrew. When did the Hebrews start speaking Aramaic?
Babylonian exile.
Babylonian exile. That's where they spoke Aramaic. That happened long after this. So they're not speaking Aramaic as their native language, they're speaking Hebrew. And they're begging Rabshakeh, speak in Aramaic, we'll get it. Of course they're lying, they just don't want to panic the people. Rabshakeh said, has my master sent me to speak these words to your master and to you, and not to the men sitting on the wall who are doomed with you to eat their own dung and drink their own urine? This guy is bad news. So then Rabshakeh stood and called out in a loud voice in the language of Judah. He's speaking Hebrew. Everybody can hear it. So he says this, hear the words of the great king, the king of Assyria. Thus says the king, so he's speaking for Sennacherib. He said, do not let Hezekiah deceive you, for he will not be able to deliver you. Do not let Hezekiah make you trust in the Lord, Yahweh, by saying, the Lord will surely deliver us. This city will not be given into the hand of the king of this city will not be given into the hand of the king of Assyria. There was a prophecy about that. They heard it. Do not listen to Hezekiah, for thus says the king of Assyria, make your peace with me and come out to me. Then each one of you will eat of his own vine, and each one of his own fig tree, and each one of you will drink of the water of his own cistern until I come and take you away to a land like your own, a land of grain and wine, a land of bread and vineyards. Now the point is, the Assyrians, when they conquered a people, displaced them. That's how they managed to keep order in a land that they conquered. They wouldn't let you stay there because you know where all the escape routes are. You know where all the rocks are. You know how to fend off an enemy. So he'd take the people he conquered and he'd move them to another place. Well, they're going to put them in a desert. They're going to put them in the mountains somewhere, someplace where it keeps them off balance. So this is a lie. He's saying, it'll be really good if you surrender to us. Absolutely a lie. Then he says this, but lest, and this is where it gets interesting, lest Hezekiah mislead you by saying, the Lord will deliver us. Has any of the gods of the nations delivered his land out of the hand of the king of Assyria? Where are the gods of the seraphim? They do have a thoroughfare here. Okay. Where are the gods of the Sepharavim? Have they delivered Samaria out of my hand? Who among the gods of these lands have delivered their lands out of my hand, that the Lord should deliver Jerusalem out of my hand? I mean, this is blasphemous. He's mocking God. He's mocking Hezekiah. He's trying to terrify the people. You have psychological warfare. He's shouting across the gap between where he stands and these walls, and all the people are listening. And it says, the people on the walls, including Hezekiah, but they were silent and did not answer him a word, for the king's command was, do not answer him. Then Eliakim, the son of Hilkiah, who was over the household, and Shebna, the secretary, and Joah, the son of Asaph, the recorder, came to Hezekiah with their clothes torn and told him the words of Rabshakeh. Now, I'm not going to read the rest of this, but you can read it in Isaiah 37. It's a long chapter. And Isaiah prophesies to Hezekiah in a big, long prophecy. And in that prophecy, he essentially says, now look, here's what we're going to do. Bring the letter, this is a letter that was written, probably on pottery, or maybe it was in clay. And it was handed off to one of Hezekiah's men who takes it to Hezekiah. They say, bring it into the temple and lay it on the altar. So Isaiah and Hezekiah take this threat of Rabshakeh, and they lay it on the altar, and they pray. And God prophesies through Isaiah, who essentially says, look, a couple of things. First of all, I know where this guy lives. I'll get him. Secondly, go home and get a good night's sleep. Now, if you just heard this, and you saw that army, which is numbering in the hundreds of thousands, surrounding you, hundreds of thousands, and these guys are known for brutally killing your babies, much less what they do to you as an adult. Go home and get a good night's sleep? Besides, he built this big wall. He dug that tunnel. It's got to work, doesn't it? That's plan B. They get up in the morning, the next morning. This is something that a lot of people have a hard time believing. I've heard Christians try and make an excuse for this. Don't make excuses for it. The Bible tells us that an angel of the Lord went through the Assyrian camp that night, and when they got up in the morning, there were 185,000 dead Assyrians surrounding Jerusalem on that side of the wall where you're standing right now. See these red pavers that are going across here? There's here, and they're over there. You're standing on the wall. It's just underneath your feet. That's why these markers are here. It shows you where the wall went. So that's what happened just outside the walls in that direction and surrounding the whole city. Pretty amazing, huh?
Yeah.
But that's what this wall is all about. Big high wall made of the rubble from people's houses, but just remember, it's plan B. You can always rely on God to come through with plan A. Always. Well, wait a minute, something bad's going to happen. Trust the Lord. If he says be wise and stock stuff up, then do that. But he didn't tell these guys to do that. He just said, they're coming, trust me, I'll take care of it. And they're coming, so they build a wall, they build a tunnel, and he still takes care of it. 185,000 dead Assyrians. When you look at a map of the Assyrian Empire that's detailed, it's usually a big blob that goes all the way from Iran, all the way up into Turkey and down into Egypt, and it covers this entire area. And then you'll see one little white dot, Jerusalem. They never got it. And when they backed off, then Rabshakeh goes back over to Nineveh, which was the capital of Assyria. You know where Jonah went. Yeah. That's the capital of Assyria. That's why Jonah didn't want to go there. I know these guys, God, they're bad. Kill them, you know. So, and he didn't want to go to them anyway. But back in Assyria, Rabshakeh goes back, and he's murdered. So God said, I'd take care of the problem, and he took care of the problem.
I have a question.
Yes.
So is there